Previously, Li Xuanyuan discovered the secret behind the Li clan's rise, the mysterious Dharma Mirror. Now, as Li Chijing advances within Qingchi Sect, a deadly wolf demon descends upon Lichuan Pass, forcing Li Xiangping and the Wan Clan into a desperate battle. But when all hope fades, the mirror reveals a terrifying power of its own. Let's continue with Reborn as an ancient mirror, Episode 6. He only went down to the river and found a mirror, and that alone set our family upon the path of immortality. Exactly, this mirror can refine moonlight and bestow the profound pearl talisman seed upon others. Its power is far too extraordinary. If word of it ever leaked out, the Li family would be reduced to ashes. Li Xiangping gave the warning, then paused when he saw the shock on Li Xuanyuan's face. Li Xuanyuan muttered to himself, his thoughts racing. Then he looked up in sudden understanding. So that is how it is. That explains everything. No wonder grandfather always refused to speak whenever I asked about his foundation establishment Cultivation. Our family did not produce 3 spiritual orifices because grandfather was once a foundation establishment cultivator. It was all because of this treasure. And just now, third uncle would not let Li Qiuyang touch me because he wanted to hide the fact that I have no spiritual orifice. That man from the Liu family was killed the moment he trespassed upon the mountain. Not because third uncle is cruel, but because third uncle was afraid. The more Li Xuanyuan thought about it, the colder his back became. Sweat beaded across his forehead. He cupped his hands toward Li Xiangping and said, "Everyone calls third uncle ruthless and suspicious, but they have misunderstood you. How could anyone entrusted with guarding such a treasure for the Li family afford to be careless?" Li Xiangping stared at him in surprise. The child before him seemed entirely different from the boy in his memory. He studied him for several breaths before asking gently, "Then why did I tell Li Qiuyang that you would soon form the profound sensory chakra?" Li Xuanyuan rubbed his chin and considered the question for a few moments. The mirror must make forming the profound sensory chakra far easier. Third uncle was afraid Li Qiuyang might grow suspicious, so you told him I had already begun cultivating several months ago. Good. Li Xiangping nodded in satisfaction and patted him on the shoulder. As expected of a child of the Li family, following your grandfather around every day has taught you more than a few things. He bent down and tapped lightly beneath the stone pedestal. From a hidden compartment beside it, he drew out a wooden slip and placed it in Li Xuanyuan's hands. Only after the boy accepted it respectfully did Li Xiangping lower his voice and explain. This secret art is called the guiding art. It is the method used to receive the profound pearl talisman seed. Spend this month studying it carefully inside the courtyard. When the winter solstice arrives, you will be ready to accept the talisman seed. Sleep in the side room next door. I will have your meals delivered. Yes. Li Xuanyuan nodded solemnly. He watched Li Xiangping close the door and listened as his footsteps faded away. Then he lowered his head and began reading the wooden slip with great care. Father remains in good health. Second brother has formed the celestial world chakra. 3 serpent essence pills have been sent to Qingchi Sect. Jing'er, cultivate diligently and strive to enter chi refining as soon as possible. All is well at home. There is no need to worry. Li Chijing carefully folded the letter and wiped the moisture from the corners of his eyes. He arranged the 3 bottles of serpent essence pills neatly upon a shelf, then turned and cupped his hands toward Xuanyuan. Many thanks, senior brother. My family has received so much kindness from you. Jing'er is deeply grateful. What are you saying? Xuanyuan shook his head. Senior and junior brothers of the same sect are as close as family. There is no need for such formality. Li Chijing nodded softly. With these serpent essence pills, together with the mind-clearing powder master bestowed upon me, I am 90% certain I can form the jade capital chakra. After thinking for a few breaths, he asked quietly. Master once said that when advancing from the embryonic breathing realm into chi refining, one must first draw in a breath of heaven and earth spirit chi. Does that have anything to do with the chakras? Xuanyuan lifted his teacup and took a sip to moisten his throat before explaining. To enter chi refining, one must first take in a breath of heaven and earth spirit chi. It may be lesser azure spirit chi refined from the chi of the mountains, earth veen baleful chi refined from the ley lines, or dawn spirit chi gathered at the first light of day in any case. That first breath is best when it harmonizes with the cultivation art. Only then will the resulting mana be pure, deep, and powerful. 9 out of 10 wandering cultivators beyond the sect refine the chi of the mountains into lesser azure spirit chi. It is compatible with many cultivation arts but excels at none and is deficient in none. Oh? Li Chijing's curiosity was immediately stirred. Then what sort of chi refining art would suit my family's cultivation method? And what kind of heaven and earth spirit chi would be best? I do not know what your family's cultivation art is, but your mana is clear and tranquil. There are several chi refining arts within the sect that should suit you well enough. Xuanyuan smiled and set down his cup. Under Li Qiang's eager gaze, he continued. The first is the primal azure rain-riding art, one of the most renowned secret arts of Qingchi Sect. It is cultivated using the mist-born key found within the fine rains of Spirit Mountain. Its practitioners excel at riding clouds and wind, parting the heavens to summon rain and overcoming enemies through softness. The second is the mountain shade forest mist art. It uses yin qi gathered from within the mountains. Very few within the sect have succeeded in cultivating it. The third is considerably more difficult. It is called the moonlight reflecting autumn art. Ever since the third peak master of Moonlight Peak mastered it, no one else has ever succeeded. There may be some hidden requirement, but that peak master died more than 300 years ago, so there is no one left to ask. Li Xiangping knew that his mana moved in harmony with moonlight. The name immediately filled him with hope, but hearing that no one had mastered the art in centuries made his heart sink. Why is that? The moon lake reflecting autumn art was once passed down by an immortal estate. It is profoundly mysterious and requires two types of heaven and earth spirit qi. The first is Taiyin moonlight, and the second is golden autumn within the lake. The sect still has some stores of golden autumn within the lake. Taiyin moonlight, however, has not appeared for several hundred years, ever since the immortal estate withdrew from the world. Several centuries ago, the Pike Master of Moonlight Peak happened to receive this art as a reward from that immortal estate. After his death, no one was ever able to cultivate it again. Li Xiangping had heard fragments of the legends surrounding that immortal estate, tales stretching across the rise and fall of many ancient powers. Yet it had not appeared in the world for centuries. He sighed inwardly, then nodded. So that is the reason. Many thanks for clearing up my confusion, senior brother. Lu Jiangxian extended his spiritual sense from within the mirror and observed the child practicing the guiding art. A faint white line appeared above the boy's head, nearly 7 inches long, like a dim halo resting over his crown. His affinity with the profound pearl talisman seed is fairly good. I wonder what his talent for cultivation will be. Lu Jiangxian withdrew his spiritual sense from Li Xuanyuan. At that very moment, something thundered within him. His vision blurred, and a flawless white disc, smooth as jade, seemed to appear before his eyes. Understanding struck him at once. That child Li Xiangping has broken through to the jade capital chakra. A strange and unfathomable force crossed thousands of miles through the connection of the profound scenery talisman seed. It flowed gently into the gray-green mirror resting upon the stone pedestal. Lu Jiangxian felt his soul suddenly grow lighter as a stream of pale blue radiance emerged within him. The feedback he had received when Li Tongya and Li Xiangping broke through had always seemed slightly insufficient. But after Li Qiangping's repeated advances, and especially the power returned when he formed the Jade Capital Chakra, Lu Jiangxian finally condensed the Taiyin Profound Light. This profound light contains roughly the power of a full-strength strike from a Jade Capital cultivator who has gathered every trace of his cultivation into one blow. Its range is enormous, as well greater even than the area covered by my spiritual sense. Once Lu Jiangxian formed the profound light, his spiritual sense expanded to encompass the entirety of Lijing village. Excitement surged through him. The mirror grew faintly warm, and that distant, alluring sensation returned once more. My spiritual sense reaches farther now. I can detect things at a much greater distance. Lu Jiangxian carefully traced the direction of the sensation. It still seems to be somewhere on Wangyu Lake, only much farther away than before. Should I signal the Li family and have them investigate? No. His thoughts tightened at once. Judging by the location, it seems to lie within the market on the lake. It would be better to wait until the Li brothers have both formed the Jade Capital Chakra before sending them there. The door creaked open. Li Mutian entered with his 2 sons. Li Xiangping patted Li Xuanyuan on the shoulder and asked solemnly, "Are you ready?" "I'm ready." Li Xuanyuan nodded firmly and returned the wooden slip to Li Xiangping. Only after Li Mutian saw his son put the slip away did he respectfully move the mirror onto a table and arrange several sticks of incense before it. This disciple of the Li family, Li Xuanyuan, respectfully petitions the profound and numinous wondrous art. Grant peace to the spirit, steady the ordained life, and guide this disciple upon the Tao. At this appointed hour, let merit be declared. May faith not be betrayed. Let the register burn in witness, and let this body offer thanks to Taiyin. The moment Li Xuanyuan finished speaking, Lu Jiangxian activated the spell. Multicolored radiance shimmered across the mirror's surface, pulsing in and out as though the mirror itself were breathing. Then, without warning, it released a white orb. Li Xuanyuan immediately sat cross-legged and guided the art, receiving the talisman seed into his body. Liu Rushuan formed the profound Senri chakra last night. Give Xuanyuan another few months, and he should do the same. Counting everyone, the Li family now has 6 cultivators. Li Tanya glanced at Li Xuanyuan on the floor, then turned and shut the door tightly behind them. 2 at the Celestial World Chakra. 3 at the profound sensory chakra, and Jinger has already formed the Azure Essence chakra within the immortal sect. Li Xiangping looked at the gray-green mirror upon the table, its radiance spilling in every direction, and continued. But the main Li bloodline still lacks high-level cultivators. Forget Ji Dengqi, who has already entered key refining. Even the neighboring Wan family has a cultivator at the peak of the Jade Capital Chakra. Only after forming the Jade Capital Chakra and awakening spiritual sense can one refine pills, forge artifacts, arrange formations, use storage treasures, or travel safely to and from a cultivation market. Lu Jiangxian was listening to their conversation when his perception suddenly stirred. He faintly sensed an unfamiliar aura approaching from the west, not far from the Li family's territory. His perception existed on 2 distinct levels. The first was a broad awareness he thought of as sight. Its range was enormous, faintly covering the full extent of Li territory from Lichuan Pass to Li Dao Pass. Like the vision of a mortal, it revealed only rough outlines and general movements. Its greatest advantage was that it was extremely difficult to detect. Even Xuanyuan Bai, when he had passed through as a Foundation establishment cultivator, had never realized Lu Jiangxian was watching him. The second level was true spiritual sense. It covered roughly the whole of Lijing village and was more akin to a mortal's sense of touch. Within that range, Lu Jiangxian could sweep a person directly with his spiritual sense. Depending on the difference in strength between them, however, the target might clearly feel the intrusion. Within the same range, he could also unleash the Taiyan profound light against an enemy. Now his distant awareness told him that the unfamiliar aura possessed roughly Jade Capital cultivation. It was prowling suspiciously near Lichuan Pass. Unease stirred within him. Why is a Jade Capital cultivator skulking around here? I should warn the Li family. At his thought, silver-white moonlight surged from the mirror. It gathered into countless pale blue threads and wove themselves together in mid-air. The sudden change startled Li Tanya and the others. They watched the silver light condense above them and exchanged uncertain looks. Li Mutian narrowed his eyes. Do not panic, watch carefully. It looks like a map of our territory. Li Tanya rubbed his chin, his voice hesitant. The moonlight gradually formed a brilliant white map. Lichuan, Lidao, Jingyang, and every other village under Li control appeared upon it in astonishing detail. Only Lichuan Pass flashed repeatedly with silver light. Lichuan Pass? Li Xiangping murmured. Chen Erniu had managed Lichuan Pass for several years now. He had grown heavier, and a few whiskers had finally appeared upon his chin. At last, he no longer looked like an ordinary farmhand. After spending the day calculating field accounts and settling a dispute over land between 2 brothers, he lay back on his bed to enjoy a rare moment of rest while considering the next day's work. Those plots east of the village are good land. Tomorrow I will send a few men to clear them and claim several more fields. Lichuan Pass bordered Li Dao Pass. Yet unlike Lijing and Jingyang villages, neither stood clearly above the other in the local administration. As the steward of Lichuan Pass, Chen Erniu had to argue every matter carefully and defend the village's interests. Xuanyuan had once planned to open an eastern trade route. Yet the Wan family had soon surrendered even Guli Road to the Ji clan, leaving no path eastward at all. Xu Wenshan had been simmering with resentment for months and now challenged Chen Erniu over every minor issue. What a nuisance. As Chen Erniu turned the matter over in his mind, an uproar erupted outside. His eldest son burst into the room in a panic. Something terrible has happened. Father, someone is dead at the edge of the village. Chen Erniu sprang from the bed. What? He snatched up the clothes beside him, dressed in haste, and dragged his son toward the door. Damn it, what happened? The Chen family's eldest son was named Chen Sanshui. With anxiety written across his face, he reached for the long saber hanging on the wall. Take the saber, father! Take it! I will explain on the way! Chen Erniu accepted the weapon, fastened it at his waist, and strode rapidly toward the village entrance. One of the village guards was patrolling the fields when he went aside to relieve himself. He heard rustling among the crops and thought someone was fooling around in the field. He hid and looked closer, only to find a blood-covered corpse with the back of its skull missing. The sight frightened him so badly he wet himself. Chen Sanshui hurried after his father as he spoke. How did the man die? The back of his head was smashed open, and his brain marrow was dug out. The corpse is horrible. Chen Erniu stopped so abruptly that his son nearly ran into him. Did you send anyone to inform the family heads? Not yet, Chen Sanshui's reply faltered. Idiot, do you think something like this can be hidden? Chen Erniu exploded in fury. I already spoke with the households near the field and told them not to spread the news yet. Lichuan Pass has not seen a single murder in years. I was afraid Xu Wenshan would use it against you. Seeing his father's anger, Chen Sanshui hurriedly explained. Fool! The man's brain was dug out. The fear on his father's face finally made Chen Sanshui pause. His thoughts seemed to clear. Does an ordinary murderer dig out a man's brain marrow? And Xu Wenshan and I hold equal authority. We may compete, but neither of us is dissatisfied with the other. Why would he kick me while I was down and force me to offend more than 100 households in Lichuan Pass for no reason? You brothers are as stupid as pigs. Xuanyuan is younger than I am. When I am gone, what will you use to compete with him? Father, the rebuke struck Chen Sanshui like a blow. Shame flooded his face and he lowered his head in silence. Chen Ernu's expression darkened. A heavy unease pressed upon his chest. I fear a demon is causing trouble. Go to Lijing village and inform the family heads yourself. Chen Sanshui nodded hard and hurried away. Chen Ernu watched his eldest son disappear into the night. Only then did fear and sorrow finally show upon his face. I do not know how powerful this demon is. Sanshui must learn to see danger clearly. Only then will the Chen family have a path to survive. Chen Ernu had lived through the terrible drought that once struck Lichuan Pass. He had been a child then, playing before his family's door, when crimson flames suddenly rose over the village. A gigantic bird descended, swallowed several guards as easily as insects, then beat its wings and vanished. The fire it left behind scorched Lichuan Pass so thoroughly that the fields remained hot for 3 full months. The surviving villagers devoured everything edible around the pass. They hauled water from the Mixi River and poured it over the soil, only for the earth to swallow every drop without leaving so much as a trace of dampness. Chen Ernu's father carried bucket after bucket for 9 straight days. Then, with his wife dead from starvation in his arms, he took his own life. Chen Ernu cast both his parents' bodies into the river. Gritting his teeth and holding back his tears, he fled to Lijing village. He knelt before the Li family and struck his forehead against the ground until it bled. Only then was he allowed to enter their service. Every household in Lijing had already taken in refugees from the surrounding villages. Some newcomers attempted to storm the homes of wealthy families, only to be beaten to death by servants who had themselves been refugees just days earlier. Many others could do nothing but lower their heads and return to Mount Dali. 3 months later, people slowly began to return to Lichuan Pass. No one dared remember those days. No one dared ask how the 100-odd survivors had endured. They silently buried bones that had been licked clean. Before the disaster, Lichuan Pass had held nearly 300 households and 1,400 people. Barely 300 souls remained. Torchlight flickered before Chen Ernu, dragging him back from the memory. His second son, Chen Shushui, had already arrived to help. Chen Ernu raised his torch and stared at the blood-soaked corpse lying on the ground, its skull hollow and empty. Tears streamed down his face as he ground his teeth. Who is it? Old Yi from the village entrance. Seeing his father's tears, Chen Shushui answered softly, uneasy and afraid. Call everyone in the village. Light bonfires. Tell them to bring sabers and staves. Chen Ernu gave the order in a low voice. At that moment, a village guard came hurrying from the entrance. The instant he saw Chen Ernu, he called out, Steward Chen, Steward Chen. The family heads have sent someone to ask whether anything unusual has happened at Lichuan Pass. Chen Ernu froze. How could news travel from Lichuan to Lijing so quickly? Even if someone in the village had secretly reported it, there is no way a messenger could arrive at this exact moment. The man here must have died only moments ago, yet the family heads already knew. They must possess some means of dealing with the demon. The tension in his brows eased, and some of the weight left his heart. A demon may be causing trouble in the village. I have already sent someone to report to the family heads. Back on Mount Lijing, Li Xiangping silently studied the gray-green mirror upon its pedestal. The fractured surface seemed to have recovered slightly since the day he first pulled it from the river, but it still looked as though it might shatter at any moment. A faint silver-white glow drifted from within, giving it an ethereal, dreamlike appearance. How long ago did the messenger leave? A quarter of an hour. Li Tongya looked anxiously through the window and set down the wooden slip in his hand. We should go out. If they cannot find us, they may break the rules and force their way into the rear courtyard. Let's go. Li Xiangping glanced once at Li Xuanyuan, who remained seated cross-legged, then spoke in a low voice. The moment they stepped out of the rear courtyard, they found Li Xiangping pacing like an ant upon a hot pan. His eyes lit up when he saw the brothers. Lichuan Pass sent word. Someone had his brain marrow dug out. His brain marrow? Li Xiangping stopped short and looked toward Li Tongya. It is probably a demon, most likely. Li Tongya nodded gravely. After thinking for several breaths, he said, The creature dug out the brain and then withdrew. That means it still fears people. Its cultivation should not be too high, and it is almost certainly still within the embryonic breathing realm. If it had reached qi refining, it could have slaughtered the entire village and vanished into the mist afterward. I will go and investigate. Li Xiangping considered the matter, then turned to Li Xiangping. Gather the able-bodied men. Tell them to bring weapons. Yes, Li Xiangping hurried away. Only after he had disappeared did Li Tongya frown. We do not know how deep that creature's cultivation runs. Neither of us should go. If I refuse to appear tonight, all the authority the Li family has spent years building among the villages will collapse. I have no choice. Second brother, remain on the mountain. I will go and sound out the situation. You know my nature. I will not take reckless risks. Even if something happens to me, the Li family will still have you. At worst, we abandon Lichuan Pass and ask the sect for aid. With that, Li Xiangping nodded to his brother, took up his bow and arrows, threw on a cloak and hurried down the mountain. Wan Tianshang had lived at Lichuan Pass for more than half a year. He rarely left his courtyard, and the sight of the green spirit rice shoots thriving day by day filled him with satisfaction. That night, after casting the spirit rain art over the field inside the courtyard, he sat cross-legged to regulate his breathing. Before long, he heard a distant uproar beyond the walls. He opened his eyes. Torchlight flickered through the darkness outside as though people were running toward him. His heart sank. He opened the courtyard gate and looked out. A child came racing through the night with a torch held high. "Boy, what happened? My lord!" Old Yi from the village entrance is dead. They say a monster has come, and everyone in the village is being called together. The child stopped in haste and looked anxiously at Wan Tianshang. The immortal master, who had not stepped beyond the courtyard in half a year, frowned, took half a step outside, then drew back again. Of all places, why must a demon appear at Lichuan Pass? This spirit rice has been growing for barely half a year. Nothing can be allowed to happen to it. Wan Tianshang wanted to seek out Li Xiangping, yet he feared the creature might be watching the spirit field. Caught between the two concerns, he crouched before the child. "Go and call Chen Ernu." "Yes!" The child turned. At the same moment, torchlight flared within the forest, and a crowd emerged around Chen Ernu. "Immortal Master, what are we supposed to do?" Sweat covered Chen Ernu's face. The family heads had not yet arrived, yet 2 village guards were already dead, both with their brain marrow dug out and their bodies mutilated beyond recognition. Fear and fury had him pacing in circles. "Did anyone see the creature?" Wan Tianshang's expression darkened as he questioned him. No, the victims managed only a single cry. They did not even have time to scream again. Wan Tianshang's first instinct was to retreat. He was only at the peak of the profound sensory chakra. How could he possibly confront a creature that came and went like the wind? "Li Xiangping, you bastard! Where are you? Brother Wan!" Wan Tianshang had just opened his mouth when a loud call swept toward them from the distance. He looked up. A young man in vine armor strode through the night with a longbow in hand, smiling broadly enough to show his white teeth. "Young Patriarch," Chen Ernu immediately bowed. Wan Tianshang understood at once that the newcomer must be Li Xiangping. He cupped his hands. "Wan Tianshang of the Wan family greets the young patriarch." Li Xiangping waved for Chen Ernu to rise, then said, "Brother Wan, wait a moment." He turned toward Chen Ernu. "Bring every elder woman and child in the village to this courtyard. Divide the guards into teams of 10 and station them in a ring outside, 5 paces apart. Each team must keep at least 5 other teams within sight so they can support one another." Without waiting for anyone else, he entered the courtyard with Wan Tianshang. "Yes!" Chen Ernu finally found something solid to cling to. He immediately began issuing orders. The moment Li Xiangping entered the courtyard, Wan Tianshang gave a bitter smile. "Brother Li, that demon may possess considerable cultivation. I fear I will not be of much help." Li Xiangping laughed. "There is no need to circle around the matter. Your Wan family wants to protect the spirit rice, and my Li family wants to preserve Lichuan Pass. Our 2 families are grasshoppers tied to the same rope." Wan Tianshang's heart sank. Had the creature appeared anywhere else, he would not have cared how many people it devoured. He would gladly have sat beside the spirit field and watched the Li family suffer. But now, the spirit rice itself was threatened, and he had no choice but to help. He put away those private thoughts, considered for several breaths, then fetched paper and brush from his room. "The safest plan is for me to write to our patriarch and have him rush here as reinforcement. It would be best if this matter could be settled before dawn." "Agreed." Li Xiangping nodded. "Write 3 letters. I will send messengers out of the village in 3 different directions. In case something happens along one of the roads and the message fails to reach Wan territory." Wan Tianshang nodded repeatedly and spent roughly a quarter of an hour writing. Before he finished, screams and cries for help erupted outside the courtyard. Chaos spread through the village. Li Xiangping's expression hardened. He went to the gate and looked out. A crowd of elders, women, and children had gathered before the courtyard. Bonfires burned among them. Every face was turned toward the darkness in terror. Some whimpered, while others sobbed openly. Farther out, the village guards had gathered into groups. They clutched long staves and wooden doors as makeshift shields, staring fearfully toward the forest. "It is a mountain wolf." Wan Tianshang stood beside Li Xiangping with the brush still in his hand, his eyes fixed upon a cluster of green lights between the trees. A colossal wolf, as large as an ox, stepped from the forest. Silver-gray fur covered its body, Its green pupils stood narrow and vertical. It had a long pointed muzzle, a broad mouth, raised ears, and a curved tail. The guards retreated one step after another as it approached. The beast raised its head and looked over the crowd. Its cold eyes locked upon Li Xiangping, who stood on the stone steps before the courtyard. Its long muzzle curled slightly upward. It almost seemed to be smiling. That beast. Sweat poured down Wan Tianshang's face. He wiped it away and continued in a low voice. Judging by the intelligence in its expression, it has at least devoured the essence of sun and moon and formed the jade capital chakra. A chill crawled down Li Xiangping's spine as well. He stared into the giant wolf's green eyes and saw unmistakable contempt within them. Even our patriarch may not be a match for this creature. Wan Tianshang suddenly raised his head and looked quietly at Li Xiangping. His lips moved, and the words came with difficulty. A demon at the spirit origin chakra? Li Xiangping narrowed his eyes. We have already prepared for the worst. If this creature is beyond the jade capital chakra, then lure it southeast. Circle around Lijing village and draw it up Mount Lijing. My family has a formation there. With the terrain and the formation in his favor, your patriarch may be able to kill it. Very well. Wan Tianshang carefully corrected the 3 letters, then handed them to Chen Erniu. After watching the steward dispatch 3 messengers, he shook his head with a bitter smile. That beast has formed the jade capital chakra and awakened its intelligence. It has probably eaten more than a few people. Now that it has fixed its eyes upon the 2 of us, there is nowhere left to run. Cultivators are nourishing treasures to a demon. There is no need to panic. Li Xiangping waved a hand. He stared into the creature's eyes, and the corners of his own mouth curved faintly upward, mirroring the wolf's cruel smile. When I was a child, I watched my father hunt wolves. A beast should know caution. This one has reached the jade capital chakra, yet it still crept all the way to the border as though its life meant nothing. The fact that it has chosen us is good. Follow my commands. Chen Erniu, your subordinate is here. Chen Erniu hurried closer and listened attentively. Have the guards withdraw 1 step at a time around us. We will all retreat south together. Leave the elders, women, and children where they are. The creature will follow us. The outer guards are to hold their torches high. If the beast approaches, roar, shout, or curse at it. No one may show even the slightest fear. If it pounces, sweep at it with long staves and sabers, or strike the ground before its feet. A wolf's legs are long and narrow. Even a demon will treasure them. Li Xiangping drew a polished arrow from his quiver. He formed a hand seal, and a faint golden light appeared over the arrowhead. He set it to the string and spoke coldly. Move. The flesh of a 2-legged beast king is the sweetest. I cannot let them escape. The wolf demon narrowed its size. In the distance, the 2-legged beast kings hurriedly gathered together, pointing fire toward it. To the wolf, human cultivators were merely kings among 2-legged beasts. I will toy with them until their strength is gone. When the beast kings scatter, I can eat them one by one. It began to accelerate, but remained cautious. It passed through the snow-covered forest, and watched the 2-legged creatures grow increasingly frightened, their formation becoming slower and more ragged. The sight pleased it greatly. Ever since it devoured that wounded white deer, its mind had grown clearer by the day. With its increasing intelligence, it had escaped several encirclements by the 2-legged beasts. In the end, it abandoned its own pack and fled here alone, wounded and exhausted. It had fought many 2-legged beasts before. It knew their kings could often spit out black mist or cast dark blue swords through the air. Pressing them too closely would only leave it injured. It had to force them back slowly, lunge from time to time, and exhaust their tricks bit by bit. Only then could it devour them safely. These 2-legged beasts have no markings on their bodies. I wonder what breed they are. Without fear, it leaped over a sweeping staff, ducked beneath a flying arrow, and clamped its jaws around a guard's arm. Bone and flesh shattered between its teeth. If those 2-legged beasts had not killed all my cubs, why would I be wandering alone? It remembered the patterned 2-legged beast that had chased it across 7 great mountains. The injuries to its vitality and mana had still not fully healed. Its green eyes grew colder. These unmarked 2-legged beasts seemed much weaker. The golden light they released carried little power, though the repeated strikes were beginning to annoy it. The winter mountain forest was deathly quiet. Snow lay thick beneath the trees. Only the constant whisper of falling flakes could be heard, broken now and then by the crack of a branch collapsing under the weight. Whoosh! Li Xiangping loosed a golden arrow. The wolf lowered its head and avoided it, then crushed a guard's arm in its jaws. Li Xiangping's expression did not change. He drew and fired again, forcing the giant beast back before it could pounce upon another man. The wounded guard screamed and fell. Blood sprayed across the snow, staining it red. The others shuddered. Their staves suddenly seemed too heavy to lift. Chen Erniu kept his face hard. He caught the injured man, wrapped the mangled arm in layers of clothing, hoisted him onto his back, and hurried after the retreating group. How much farther to Mount Lijing? Li Xiangping shouted as he trudged through the snow, each step sinking to a different depth. A quarter of an hour, Chen Ernu understood at once. He passed the wounded man to someone else, peered into the distance, and answered loudly. Hearing that the mountain was near, the guards steadied. They ground their teeth and stared at the demon, praying that they would not be the next to fall beneath its claws. We only need to lure it into the mountain and ambush it. If we do not kill this creature tonight, then it will kill us. You, and you, the women and children in every one of your homes will become meat in its jaws. Li Xiangping wiped blood from his face. Little mana remained in his dantian. He looked at the terrified men around him and roared the words. The guards exchanged glances. Determination gradually returned to their faces. They raised arms that felt as heavy as mountains and pointed their torches and staves toward the demon once more. Awoo! The wolf licked blood from its silver-gray claws. Seeing the flames and weapons turned against it, impatience entered its gaze. It pawed at the ground, quickened its assault, and tore down several guards in a single charge. Crack! A whip split the air. A green vine lash flashed through the darkness and struck the demon's back before it could react. Fur and flesh tore apart, leaving a bloody welt. Awoo! The creature howled and retreated several steps, its vicious eyes locked upon the richly dressed man holding the long whip. Patriarch! The sight of the vine whip made Wan Tianshang release a long breath. The boulder in his heart finally fell, and joy spread across his face. Wan Xiaohua had landed a successful blow, but he did not pursue. His face turned pale. He stood where he was and regulated his breathing for several moments before color slowly returned. Upon receiving Wan Tianshang's message, he had cast the swift movement art 3 times in succession to rush from Wan territory to Lichuan Pass. He had then used a magical artifact to drive the beast back. Even at the peak of the Jade Capital Chakra, the effort had left him short of breath. This demon's body is too tough. Wan Xiaohua stared at the shallow wound upon its back and drew a deep breath. His expression was ugly. Have the mortals leave first. His vine whip was a chi refining artifact. Wielding it with peak Jade Capital Cultivation placed a heavy burden upon him, but its strikes were normally powerful enough to shatter stone monuments and split boulders. Yet even a direct blow had done little more than raise a bloody welt. That alone revealed how formidable the creature's body was. Li Xiangping waved his hand. Chen Ernu immediately ordered the guards to carry the wounded away, through the snow toward Lijing village in the west. As man and beast faced one another upon the white ground, Li Xiangping shouted, Patriarch Wan! If you cannot defeat it, lure it southwest. Mount Lijing is protected by a formation. Even if we cannot kill the creature, we can at least escape with our lives. Wan Xiaohua cast Li Xiangping a deep look, understood. He raised the long whip, it screamed through the air and struck toward the demon's back. Awoo! The creature twisted lightly and avoided the lash. 2 bounds carried it beyond Wan Xiaohua's reach, and then it charged. A foul wind slammed into him. Wan Xiaohua remained calm. His fingers formed a seal and a small white jade shield appeared from nothing. The demon shattered it with a single blow, but the barrier bought him enough time to open the distance again. The beast pressed its paws into the ground and lunged once more. Wan Xiaohua's eyes lit up. An opening! White radiance erupted from the vine whip as it swept toward the wolf's waist. The demon neither dodged nor retreated. Cunning flashed through its pupils. Its jaws opened wide, its throat pulsing with every breath as it hurled itself toward Wan Xiaohua's face. Damn it! What a cunning beast! Wan Xiaohua cursed inwardly. He had no choice but to release the whip and retreat at once. The demon endured Wan Xiaohua's lash and let out a low growl. It raked the whip from the ground with one claw, planted a paw over it, and stared coldly at him with green eyes. What a cunning creature! Wan Xiaohua looked at the enormous silver-gray wolf and gave a bitter smile. Wan territory did not border Mount Dali, so his clan had little experience fighting demons, much less one at the Jade Capital Chakra. The beast flicked a claw, burying the whip beneath the snow, then bounded toward Wan Xiaohua across the shallow drifts. Wan Xiaohua hurriedly formed another seal. The small white jade shield appeared before him once more. Black chi rose around the creature's 4 paws. It launched itself into the air, shattered the shield in a single strike, and snapped its jaws toward Wan Xiaohua's throat. Within the small courtyard at the summit of Mount Lijing, the gray-green mirror blazed with white radiance. Moonlight boiled from its surface like surging water. The moment Wan Xiaohua and Li Xiangping entered the range of Lu Zhangshan's spiritual sense, the Taiyan profound light within the mirror had begun trembling with power. Lu Zhangshan suppressed the urge to strike. He wanted to see what hidden cards a peak Jade Capital cultivator might possess. He seems rather unimpressive. Wan Xiaohua was already losing ground. At the final, desperate moment, the wolf forced him to activate a pale blue talisman and flee toward the water prison at the foot of Mount Lijing. Lu Zhangshan lost all interest in watching. Let me use this strike to test the creature's true strength. At his thought, 12 talisman inscriptions surrounding the mirror began to shine. Milky white moonlight wrapped around the green mirror and lifted it slowly from the stone pedestal. The mirror adjusted its angle in mid-air. Father. Under the shocked gazes of Li Tongya and Li Mutian, a beam of white moonlight erupted from the mirror. It blasted through the room's window and streaked across the sky like a brilliant meteor, leaving broken stone and gray roof tiles scattered across the floor. Once the Taiyin profound light had been released, the mirror slowly dimmed. The white moonlight dispersed, and it settled back onto the stone pedestal. Li Tongya stared at the shattered tiles and drifting dust, uncertain what he was supposed to feel. Li Mutian coughed twice after inhaling the dust, then waved him away. It is probably connected to that demon. Hurry and see whether your brother is safe. Only then did Li Tongya seem to awaken from a dream. He broke into a run. What could possibly have happened to him? With a display like that, forget a demon in the embryonic breathing realm. Even a qi-refining creature would probably be reduced to minced flesh. Wan Xiaohua cast the swift movement art upon his legs and fled toward Mount Lijing, following the route Li Xiangping had mentioned. Regret gnawed at him. This has been a terrible loss. One water prison talisman and another half a spirit stone gone. A violent wind roared behind him. His spiritual sense swept backward, and a white shield appeared behind his body. He used the force of the demon's strike against it to widen the distance once more. What? Wan Xiaohua looked toward the mountain ahead, intending to judge how far remained. Instead, a dazzling white light suddenly rose from the summit. It curved through the air, trailing a long tail of radiance, and came screaming straight toward him. What the hell? Wan Xiaohua nearly spat blood in alarm. He twisted aside, but the white streak ignored him entirely and passed by. The shock dropped him onto the snow. He watched as the light swept across the demon's neck with the effortless grace of a blade cutting through a sheet of thin paper. The wolf's head separated from its body. Its headless corpse leaped high into the air. Boom! The massive body crashed to the ground. The streak of light continued onward, tearing through a whole stand of ancient trees before vanishing into the distance. The force of its passage shook every branch in the forest. Snow collapsed from the trees in a single wave and nearly buried Wan Xiaohua where he sat. Cough, cough, cough! He spat out several mouthfuls of snow mixed with ash and stared, open-mouthed, at the corpse of the demon, which lay upon the ground like a small hill. Patriarch! Patriarch! Wan Tianshang's cries drew rapidly closer. He rushed over and pulled Wan Xiaohua from the snow. Patriarch, are you injured? Wan Xiaohua stared blankly at him and muttered, using a butcher's cleaver to kill a chicken. Sweat covered Wan Tianshang's face. He drew out the vine whip, which still carried clumps of snow. Tianshang feared the artifact might be lost, so I remained hidden in the snow. Once the wolf demon chased after Patriarch, I recovered the whip. Good. The sight of the artifact snapped Wan Xiaohua from his daze. He accepted it, stored it away, then scrambled to his feet and hurried toward the wolf's corpse. Thick frost had formed around the severed neck. Not a single drop of blood had escaped. Wan Xiaohua immediately formed several seals and struck the joints and major acupoints of the body, sealing its remaining spirituality within. This corpse is an excellent treasure. We cannot allow its spiritual essence to dissipate. He smiled and stroked the beast's back, which was broad enough to rival an ox. Patriarch, this demon probably belongs to someone else. Seeing how delighted Wan Xiaohua looked, Wan Tianshang reminded him with extreme caution. Wan Xiaohua's joy immediately froze. He cast Wan Tianshang a dark glance. I understand. Patriarch Wan, the two Wan cultivators were still staring at each other when a shout came from the distance. They turned and saw Li Xiangping and Li Tongya approaching with Chen Erniu and a group of guards. Many thanks for coming to our aid, Patriarch Wan. Li Xiangping cupped his hands with a smile. Chen Erniu read the look in his eyes and immediately gestured for the guards to begin moving the corpse. I have embarrassed myself before everyone. Wan Xiaohua gave a bitter smile and shook snow from his robes. Then he asked carefully, that white streak which saved me. Li Tongya immediately stepped forward. Our father still possesses several talismans he crafted in his earlier years. The immortal master who came from afar to assist us feared the demon might harm you, so father instructed us to use one. So that was the reason. Wan Xiaohua breathed a sigh of relief. The explanation did not differ greatly from what he had expected. Then I must thank your honored father as well. We are the ones who should thank the Wan family. They exchanged several rounds of courtesy. Then Wan Xiaohua pointed toward the corpse and smiled. How does your clan intend to handle this creature? The body of a wolf demon is not easy to process, but every part of it is valuable. Its bones and blood may be refined into medicines, while its pelt can be used for talismans or garments. It is a genuine treasure. Li Tongya and Li Xiangping exchanged a glance and smiled helplessly. Our family's foundation is shallow. We have neither the means to craft talismans nor the skill to refine medicines. So much of it would be wasted. Since Patriarch Wan can enter the cultivation market, perhaps we could entrust your clan with selling it. This wolf demon is enormous, and something about it is unusual. It may have swallowed a precious medicinal creature or herb. I will not deceive you. If its parts are sold separately in the market, they should fetch more than 2 or 3 spirit stones. Wan Xiaohua considered for several breaths, then looked at the brothers, who were listening attentively. I still have half a spirit stone on me. I can give that to you first and use other goods to make up the remainder. Have either of you read the Essentials of Miscellaneous Cultivation? When both brothers shook their heads, Wan Xiaohua smiled. It records the key principles and personal insights of a wandering cultivator at the spirit origin chakra regarding several spells. I purchased it in the market for 1 spirit stone. It includes minor arts such as the swift movement art and the wind spirit art. How would you feel about taking it in exchange? Li Xiangping studied the smile on Wan Xiaohua's face and rubbed his chin. We cannot use the wolf's corpse ourselves, and transporting it to market would not be simple. Better to trade it to Wan Xiaohua. We may lose a little value, but each side will receive what it needs. He smiled. Patriarch Wan may decide the terms. Excellent. Wan Xiao was immediately delighted. Then I must trouble your clan to transport the corpse to the border between our territories. I will send men to collect it there. Very well. They exchanged several more words. Li Xiangping glanced at the sky and cupped his hands. Would Patriarch Wan care to visit Mount Lijing and rest for a while? There is no need. Many matters remain unresolved within my clan, and I must return at once. Should anything arise in the future, simply have Tianshang write and send word. Wan Xiaohua refused at once. Mount Lijing was protected by a formation. The 2 families might appear harmonious at present, but who could say whether a guest who entered the mountain would ever be allowed to leave? He understood that Li Xiangping's invitation was merely a polite way of seeing him off. After exchanging a few final courtesies, he departed. Snow fell for 3 days. Silver-gray flakes raged through the sky, every household shut its doors, and the cold deepened in earnest. Li Xiangping cleaned and organized the small courtyard in Lijing village, entrusted it to Li Qiuyang, then led Lu Rushuan up Mount Lijing. Their feet sank unevenly into the snow. Lu Rushuan wore a pale gray fur hat. She held Li Tongya's hand with a cheerful smile and said softly, "Brother Tongya, we will marry at the beginning of spring." "All right." Li Tongya brushed the snow from her shoulder. Smiling faintly, he tilted the umbrella in his hand, shook the flakes from its surface, and shifted it closer over Lu Rushuan. Mount Lijing was not high. The 2 passed through the heavy mist gathered at its foot, and followed the snow-covered stone road to the courtyard. The moment they entered, they found Xuanyuan seated before the brazier with a ball of yarn in her arms. Her cheeks were flushed by the heat and she smiled when she saw them. "Second brother, second sister-in-law," Li Tongya answered with a laugh. Although Xuanyuan was 5 or 6 years older, Lu Rushuan felt completely at ease with her. She moved closer to the fire and began whispering and laughing with Xuanyuan. Li Xiangping had gone down at dawn to cast the spirit rain art over the rice fields, and was now cultivating in the rear courtyard. Li Tongya removed his cloak, hung it upon the wall, then looked toward Madame Ren, who sat quietly sewing to one side. "Where is father? Old people like to sleep during winter. He is still in his room." Madame Ren looked up and smiled. Xuanyuan waved for her to join them beside the brazier. She set down her needlework, moved closer, and began asking Lu Rushuan questions in a low, amused voice. Li Mutian had personally widened the skylight the previous day and worked until late at night. He was still asleep. Li Tongya looked through the window at the entire mountain buried beneath snow and thought silently, if only eldest brother were still here. Winter passed, and spring returned. The weather had begun improving the year before. Gentle spring rains prevented drought, while the cool, dry autumn brought no flooding. The villagers paid a 10% field tax, yet still possessed far more grain than in previous years. Every household had food left over, and no one froze to death that winter. The second crop of spirit rice in Lijing village had also ripened the previous year. After harvesting and removing the husks, the family obtained 170 caddies of spirit rice and 50 caddies of spirit rice bran. Added to the earlier harvest, their stores now totaled 290 caddies of spirit rice and 90 caddies of bran. The 200 caddies required for tribute had already been secured. With Li Qiuyang and Lu Rushuan helping, Li Tongya and Li Xiangping found their burdens considerably lighter. They entrusted many of the spirit fields to the younger cultivators and finally had more time and energy for their own cultivation. The white origin fruit tree had also flowered, its branches covered in pale pink and white blossoms. Li Tongya calculated the remaining months and concluded that the fruit should ripen before the Qingchi Sect envoy arrived to collect tribute. He had only just finished casting Spirit Rain when Wan Tianshang entered the courtyard with a miserable expression. Ji Dengqi crossed the border last night with his face concealed. He attacked several of our spirit fields. 8 or 9/10 of the rice below the mountain was burned, many mortals were killed, and he nearly forced his way onto Mount Huaqian. Fortunately, our patriarch had already grown wary as the spirit rice approached maturity. He took command within the formation in time. Qi and his men besieged the mountain for an entire night before finally retreating at dawn. Li Xiangping set down his tea in surprise. Your clan's formation is truly formidable. It endured the assault of a qi refining cultivator for an entire night. Wan Tianshang waved a hand and smiled bitterly. We relied upon a fortunate advantage. 200 years ago, the Wan family produced a formation master. He built the Great Array around a spiritual spring on Mount Huatian. As long as the spring continues to flow, the formation can replenish its spiritual power without cease. What an extraordinary formation! Li Xiangping could not help praising it. The array on Mount Lijing is far inferior. Still, Xuanyuan once said that our formation flags could be reused to arrange a better array if we found one. It is only a pity the Li family possesses no formation inheritance. Wan Tianshang cast him a meaningful look. Seeing Li Xiangping lost in thought, he continued. Unfortunately, that ancestor was proud and overly ambitious. He rashly attempted to establish his Dao foundation and died upon Mount Huashan. He attempted to form a Dao foundation? Li Xiangping felt genuine regret. Then he must have been a senior at the peak of qi refining. Indeed. Wan Tianshang sighed, his eyes carrying a trace of longing. That was the most glorious era in the history of the Wan family. We possessed 5 qi refining cultivators at once. Within several decades of that ancestor's death, however, the clan lost 3 mountains it had spent generations developing. 4 qi refining cultivators and 10 embryonic breathing cultivators died in battle. Had we not possessed a few connections within the sect, our family would have been completely destroyed. Later, the elders passed away one after another. The relative within the sect could do no more than preserve the Wan bloodline, and ceased interfering in worldly matters. Each generation became weaker than the last, though at least the inheritance survived. It was not until our patriarch formed the Jade Capital Chakra more than 10 years ago that we could finally open several storage pouches left by our ancestors. Inside, we found only a few spirit stones and talismans, nothing capable of restoring the clan. So that is what happened. Li Xiangping sighed deeply and refilled Wan Tianshang's cup. Seeing the man's despondence, he offered several quiet words of comfort. Wan Tianshang drank, then slammed his palm against the table. That damned Ji clan! In the old days, while my Wan family fought constantly with the Yu family in the north, the Ji clan was only a minor household surviving between greater powers. They did not even possess a qi refining cultivator. Now fortune has favored them at every turn. They have grown to such an extent that they are nearly forcing my family into extinction. He studied Li Xiangping, then lowered his voice. How is the great senior of your household? Li Xiangping immediately understood that he meant Li Mutian and became wary. Fortunately, the 2 brothers had agreed upon this story long ago. He took a sip of tea and answered. In his youth, my father ran away from home and joined the army along Guli Road. He followed General Yang on campaigns against the mountain Ye. I have heard rumors of Yang Tianya. He was a foundation establishment cultivator who led troops east against the mountain Ye. Many people died in those campaigns. Wan Tianshang shifted his teacup, then asked doubtfully. Yet I also heard that your honored father returned home as a mortal. Li Xiangping smiled bitterly. While still at home, father received guidance from an immortal cultivator and entered qi refining. During his military service, he encountered another opportunity and formed an immortal foundation. As for why his cultivation was later destroyed, that is not a matter convenient to spread outside the family. Tianshang spoke carelessly. Wan Tianshang cupped his hands. He probably formed his immortal foundation while still young and hot-blooded, then offended the descendant of some great clan. Perhaps that clan's heir took revenge and crippled him into a mortal. Outwardly, he sighed. What a pity! Truly a pity. Li Xiangping remained silent. Wan Tianshang watched him for several breaths, then finally gritted his teeth. I will not hide my purpose from Brother Li. I came this time hoping to trade my clan's formation inheritance for a talisman at the peak of qi refining or even foundation establishment level so that we may kill Qi. Only then did Li Xiangping understand. So that is why Wan Tianshang suddenly began asking about father. This fellow has been plotting toward this all along. For a moment, Li Xiangping did not know what to say. Had the Li family truly possessed such a qi refining or foundation establishment talisman, he might genuinely have considered exchanging it for the Wan clan's formation inheritance. But the white light that saved Wan Xiaohua had never been a talisman. The Dharma Mirror had sensed an approaching enemy and released the attack on its own. There was no explanation he could offer. Brother Wan, it is not that Xiangping is unwilling to make the trade. The truth is that we cannot. The words sounded unconvincing even to him. He sighed inwardly. Wan Tianshang naturally refused to believe it. He frowned and began patiently explaining the benefits and dangers involved, while doubt grew within his heart. This trade would clearly benefit both families. Why does Li Xiangping refuse to speak plainly? Why does he seem so uninterested? Then he saw the difficulty on Li Xiangping's face. Sudden understanding flashed through him, and he spoke with absolute conviction. Brother Xiangping, rest assured. Apart from the Huashan locking formation, which safeguards the foundation of Mount Huaqian and therefore cannot be revealed, the inheritance contains 10 formations of the embryonic breathing realm, and 3 formations of the Qi refining realm. Not one will be withheld or altered. The complete inheritance will be delivered intact into your clan's hands. Hearing him offer such terms, Li Xiangping could not help being tempted. For now, however, he could only delay. I must discuss the matter with my father and younger brother. Afterward, I will give Brother Tianshang an answer. Of course! Of course! Wan Tianshang nodded repeatedly. He felt the agreement was already 80 or 90% certain, and relief loosened his chest. An affair of this importance naturally requires your honored father's approval. Then I will wait for good news from Brother Xiangping. They exchanged a few more pleasantries before Wan Tianshang took his leave. At the summit of Mount Lijing, Lu Jiangxian had observed every movement through his spiritual sense. Wan Tianshang certainly has a persuasive tongue. Thoughts turned rapidly within him. The Taiyin profound light gathers power equal to the entire cultivation of a peak jade capital cultivator into a single strike. Any cultivator newly entered into Qi refining would suffer badly from it. No wonder Wan Tianshang came asking for one. Lu Jiangxian was quite satisfied with the Li family. Every cultivator in the household had entered the immortal path through his profound pearl talisman seeds. Their cultivation was rooted in the seeds he had bestowed. In a sense, their rise or destruction depended upon a single thought from him. That gave Lu Jiangxian a profound sense of security. Whenever a powerful aura passed over Mount Dali, he obediently disguised himself as an ordinary mirror and hid deep within the mountains. He had no desire to become an object in another person's hands. Who knew what methods those purple mansion or golden core cultivators possessed? A being like him, half artifact spirit and half living soul, might not be beyond their control. It was true that falling into the hands of powerful cultivators might allow him to recover far more quickly. But how could being another man's dog compare with living freely in the mountains? Every person who received a profound pearl talisman seed became another tendril of his awareness. They carried information, searched for treasures, and with every breakthrough, they returned power to his mana and spiritual sense. How could being a dog ever feel as good as being the master? Lu Jiangxian muttered to himself. He looked upon the thriving Li family, sheltered by the talisman seeds he had restored, and felt extremely pleased. Yet from another perspective, if he were a member of the Li family and his entire cultivation were held in the grasp of an artifact, Lu Jiangxian would never tolerate it. He would search for every possible means to seize control. The Li family was intelligent and capable, but also suspicious, decisive, and ambitious. For that reason, Lu Jiangxian had never revealed his intelligence. He maintained the appearance of an object that acted entirely through instinct. As for the Wan family's formation inheritance, even he found it deeply tempting. He wondered what effect a formation would produce if his spiritual mirror body served as its central medium. But how can I help the Li family obtain that inheritance? A formation inheritance? Li Xiangping frowned and shook his head at Li Xiangping. Our family has no talisman to trade them, but that formation inheritance is truly irresistible. I can barely keep from reaching for it. Li Xiangping's words stirred Li Xiangping's greed as well. He slapped his thigh, stood, and pulled his brother toward the rear courtyard. Let us ask father. Li Mutian was sweeping the small chamber at the back of the courtyard. The old man had few hobbies. He neither smoked nor gambled. On ordinary days, he played with his grandchildren, chatted with Tian Shoushui, or wandered back and forth before the mirror, as though afraid that the instant he looked away, it might fly through the window and vanish. Li Xuanyuan cultivated in the room next door. With the aid of the moonlight power within the mirror, he had already condensed 70 strands of moonlight essence. His progress was only slightly slower than Li Chijing's had been, filling Madame Ren and the elders with delight. After hearing Li Xiangping's explanation, Li Mutian lowered the broom and studied the mirror upon the stone pedestal. This will not be easy. Seeing disappointment upon both sons' faces, he narrowed his eyes and continued. Several days ago, the demon was killed by a streak of white light from the mirror. What did the two of you make of it? Li Xiangping and Li Xiangping paused, then sank into thought. Such a spiritual artifact seems born with the purpose of destroying evil and slaying demons. Perhaps the creature drew too close and was killed by the mirror. After several breaths, Li Xiangping voiced his conclusion. That is probably correct. Li Mutian nodded. If we wish to help Wan Tianshang, we could claim that the talisman must be activated by someone of our family. We might then use the Dharma Mirror from afar to ambush Ji Dengqi, but Ji Dengqi is neither evil spirit nor demon. How could we provoke the mirror into attacking him? Li Xiangping remained silent for a long while before speaking. On the path of cultivation, everything begins with the profound sensory chakra. Pill refinement, artifact forging, talisman crafting, formation arrangement, even using a storage pouch, requires the spiritual sense awakened at the Jade Capital Chakra. Perhaps once we form the Jade Capital Chakra, we will be able to unravel some of the Dharma Mirror's mysteries and borrow a portion of its power against our enemies. That makes sense. Li Xiangping nodded and calculated the timing. The Wan family's spirit rice has only just ripened once. At least 2 or 3 years will pass before the next harvest, and only then is Ji Dengqi likely to cross the border and attack again. We still have time. Li Mutian sat upon a stone bench, lifted the teapot and filled several bowls. Delay the matter for now. Once our family produces Jade Capital cultivators, our strength will no longer be much weaker than the Wan clans. We can resolve these questions then. Until that day, let Ji Dengqi continue pressing the Wan family on our behalf. Yes. Li Xiangping sipped his green tea and looked toward Li Xiangping. How is second brother's progress? I have already touched the threshold of the Azure Essence Chakra. After several more months of breathing cultivation, I need only wait for an overcast day when the sunlight is dim to attempt the breakthrough. Li Xiangping smiled. Pale white moonlight flowed like water across the mirror. The Azure Essence Chakra is much easier to form than the Radiant Lure Chakra. Li Xiangping shook his head with a smile, then grew serious. The Immortal Sect's envoy will arrive to collect tribute within the next few months. We should also ask the Wan family how the process works. Mana condenses into substance and transforms into Azure Essence. Li Xiangping waved his hand, dispersing the pale white azure moonlight essence gathered in his palm. Excitement surged through him. The Azure Essence Chakra was not considered a truly difficult barrier, but it was still the 4th chakra of the embryonic breathing realm. After more than half a year of steady cultivation, successfully condensing his mana left him deeply satisfied. This Azure Essence mana seems unusual. The increase is far greater than expected. Depth resembles the Jade Capital cultivations described in the Azure Essence Chakra Nourishment method. It seems my family's tie-in breathing and chakra nourishment scripture is anything but ordinary. Li Xiangping reached for the sword beside him and carefully polished it with a white cloth. Most people along Guli Road used sabers or staves. He had searched through 4 villages before finding this sword in the possession of Liu Jingyang of the Liu family. Liu Jingyang belonged to Liu Rushuan's maternal clan. The moment he heard that Li Xiangping wanted a sword, he pulled this treasured blade from the bottom of a chest and refused all payment, insisting that it should count as part of Liu Rushuan's dowry. After more than half a year, I have finally reached the threshold. I can now maintain the profound water sword radiance. Li Xiangping pressed 2 fingers together and slowly drew them along the blade. A pale gray sword aura emerged at once. Thin as a cicada's wing, it clung to the edge and gleamed with terrifying sharpness. He left the courtyard and found an empty place on the mountain to practice. Ha! After moving through several sword forms, Li Xiangping raised the blade and flicked his wrist across the great tree before him. The enormous banyan crashed to the ground, throwing dust into the air. Truly sharp. The stump was smooth as polished stone. Li Xiangping had felt almost no resistance at all. His sword had passed straight through the thick trunk. He practiced with growing enthusiasm for some time, then returned the sword to his waist, regulated his breathing to restore his mana, and headed back toward the Lijing courtyard. The white origin fruits in the Lijing courtyard had ripened. Round and white, they hung from pale yellow crowns and looked extraordinarily tempting. Harvesting them was far easier than harvesting spirit rice. One only needed to pluck them with mana and store them in jade boxes. The tree had produced 15 fruits at once. Li Xiangping borrowed 2 jade boxes from Wan Tianshang, which was just enough to hold them all. Brother Tianshang, regarding the tribute, follow Guli Road east until you reach Guanyun Peak, which belongs to the Xiao family. Every cultivation family in Lixia Commandery submits its tribute there. Wan Tianshang waved a hand and explained the process in detail. The families also bring whatever goods they have in excess and trade them at the foot of the mountain. The market there is managed by the Xiao family. Murder and robbery rarely occur within its grounds. But once a transaction is complete and you leave the stall, they take no further responsibility. After that, everything depends upon your own judgment. I understand. After discussing the matter with Li Xiangping and Li Mutian over the time it took to finish a cup of tea, Li Xiangping gathered the Songyu fruit sent by the Wan family, several cultivation arts and spell manuals, the household spirit rice, and the newly harvested spirit fruits. Then he quietly made his way to Wan territory. A Wan carriage waited beside Guli Road. To prevent the Ji clan from learning of the journey and launching an ambush, the Wan family had sent only Wan Wankai, who had reached the Azure Essence Chakra, together with a single driver. They stood beside the road and waited for Li Tongya. Once everything had been loaded, Li Tongya placed the spirit rice and spirit fruits in the Wan carriage. Under the cover of darkness, they began their swaying journey east. Golden autumn within the lake requires a great lake no less than 3,000 li across. One must wait until autumn colors fill the shores, the heavens are clear, the air is crisp, and the night is bright. Use the breath-gathering art to draw in qi throughout the night. One night yields a single measure of autumn qi. 81 nights produce one strand of golden autumn within the lake. 10 strands form one complete portion. The process requires 10 years and is therefore known as one cycle of lake autumn qi. Li Xiangping read the book in his hands and silently memorized the method. Master's 7-moon True Qi Refining Manual is remarkably thorough. I wonder whether it includes a method for refining Taiyan moonlight. He searched carefully through the pages and muttered, Taiyan moonlight, here, Taiyan moonlight is white as frost and flows like water. It shines beneath the full moon and dims beneath the waning moon. Li Xiangping stared blankly, flipped forward several pages and opened his mouth. That is all? He sighed. Li Xiangping had already formed the spirit origin chakra. Only a final period of accumulation separated him from qi refining, so he had begun studying the essential principles of the next realm in advance. If I cannot find any clue to Taiyan moonlight, I will have no choice but to cultivate the primal azure rain riding art. He raised his head and saw that the mission posted outside the martial transmission pavilion had suddenly vanished. The pavilion doors opened, and a figure slowly emerged. Li Xiangping had waited outside for 3 days. At last, someone had accepted the mission to collect tribute from Lixia Commandery. The newcomer stepped lightly onto a flying shuttle and prepared to leave. Fellow Taoist! The figure looked down. What is it? Only then did Li Xiangping notice the newcomer's beautiful features. She was a young woman in a pale blue dress. He smiled awkwardly and explained. Did fellow Taoist accept the mission to collect tribute from Lixia Commandery? Yes. The woman studied him gently. Seeing that he was only a boy of around 16, she softened her tone. Do you have family in Lixia Commandery? I do. This one is Li Xiangping of Qingwei Peak. May I ask the fairy's name? Ningwan of Moon Lake Peak. Ningwan nodded for him to continue. Since Fairy Ning is traveling to Lixia Commandery to collect tribute, I hope you might look after Qiting's family. I would be deeply grateful. Li Xiangping cupped his hands and spoke respectfully. I come from the Li family of Li Jing, beside Wangyu Lake. We are disciples of the same sect. Naturally, I will look after them. Ningwan nodded, then asked with some confusion. If you were born beside Wangyu Lake, then your home lies within the territory of Moon Lake Peak. Why did you not join my peak? Li Xiangping smiled. My master, Xuanyuan, happened to pass through Mount Dali. Qiting was fortunate enough to receive his favor, and he brought me back to the sect to cultivate. Ningwan gave a dissatisfied hum. Xuanyuan should have remained peacefully at Mushroom Forest Plain. Instead, he came to Wangyu Lake and stole one of our people. How unreasonable. Li Xiangping could only smile helplessly and pretend not to have heard very well. Wan pursed her lips. Do you have anything you would like me to carry home? I do. Li Xiangping had been worrying over how to ask. Her offer filled him with delight. Many thanks, Fairy Ning. He presented a small pouch with both hands. Ningwan accepted it and weighed it in her palm. Several spirit stones knocked together inside with a clear sound. Judging by the weight, there were 4 or 5. Doubt entered her eyes. You cultivate within the sect without taking resources from your family, yet you send goods back to them instead. What sort of reasoning is this? Li Xiangping quickly shook his head. My family sent pills to me. The peak already provides everything I require, so I have no immediate use for these spirit stones. Using them directly for cultivation would be too extravagant. It is better to send them home and support the household. So that is the reason. Such devotion is rare. Ningwan's heart softened. Her impression of the boy improved considerably. She smiled. I will place them directly in your family's hands. The chill of early spring still lingered. Old Fu sat wheezing upon a yellow-gray chair with a padded coat wrapped around his body. A banner hung before his roadside tavern. The cold wind sent it writhing high in the air like the head of a loach before it sagged weakly again. Business should be good today. The southern reaches of the state of Yue were hot and damp, and winters rarely brought snow. The heavy snowfall of the previous year had been rarer still. It had trapped every wagon along Guli Road, and throughout the entire winter, Old Wu had served only 3 groups of travelers. Now spring had come, the snow had melted, and a deep chill remained in the air. It was perfect weather for drinking. Old Wu leaned back in his wooden chair and sighed lazily. The broken seat creaked beneath him. Through narrowed eyes, he saw a cloud of yellow dust rising from the distant road. He hurried to his feet, limped to the door, and called out, Hot food wine mutton. The carriage slowed and stopped before the tavern. Old Wu immediately raised his voice. Honored sirs, this humble shop has food and wine. Our hot and sour side dishes are especially refreshing. The curtain lifted, and two fur-clad men stepped down. The one in front looked no older than 17. He was striking and spirited, with a long saber in his hand and a trace of youth still lingering in his face. He smiled as he studied the tavern. The man behind him seemed 25 or 26. A treasured sword hung at his waist. His features were refined enough, and his eyes were bright and alert as he watched Old Wu carefully. An elder accompanying a junior, perhaps. The older one has some experience in the martial world and remains extremely cautious. Judging by that fine sword, they must be descendants of a wealthy clan. There is money to be made today. Old Wu made his judgment at once and smiled with exaggerated courtesy. Please come inside, honored guests. This shop's specialty is snow blossom-infused wine. Then he turned and shouted, "Customers." The two men sat at a table. Two burly attendants came thundering down from the upper floor. They bowed with ingratiating smiles and stood behind Old Wu. One pot of snow blossom wine and several dishes. Wan Yuankai set down his long saber. As the old man sent someone to prepare the order, he turned toward Li Xiangping and explained cheerfully. Snow blossom wine is made by slicing fine mutton thin, simmering it in excellent wine until it falls apart, then grinding it into a paste. The marrow from the sheep's leg bones is roasted separately and mixed into the meat paste. When it is served, the paste is warmed together with the wine. Wan Yuankai swallowed and lowered his voice. 5 years ago, I came here with an elder clansman. One pot of snow blossom wine left us stunned, as though we had tasted a heavenly delicacy. I have never forgotten it. At home, I eat the same ordinary dishes again and again. My tongue has gone numb from boredom. Li Xiangping had spent several days swaying in the carriage, eating dry rations and drinking cold water. The description immediately made his mouth water. They chatted for several moments. Then a noisy group entered from outside. Several men in padded coats dropped heavily into their seats and shouted, "Old Wu, bring out the wine!" "Ah, the honored gentlemen have arrived." Old Wu hurried over with a smile and began flattering them one after another. This early spring cold cut straight through a man. We brothers guarded the eastern entrance all night. Our birds were nearly frozen off. The family head has finally changed the watch, so we hurried here for a few cups. The broad, powerfully built man at their head laughed loudly, then continued. I do not know what has happened these past few days. The road is being watched more strictly than ever. Every great family in the commandery has sent men out. Even the birds have gone too frightened to sing. Dahu, you simply have not seen it before. This happens every few years. After a few times, you will grow accustomed to it. The commandery's great families remain tense for several days, and then everything returns to normal. A voice drifted from the neighboring table. Wan Yuankai listened for a while, then grinned and whispered, "We are close to Guanyun Peak. I suspect those men are mortal retainers of the Xiao family." Li Xiangping nodded. The image of Xiaoyuanci immediately appeared in his mind, and he could not help feeling a little more goodwill toward the men. A waiter brought over a pot of hot wine, several small dishes, and a bowl of snow-white mutton paste. Wan Yuankai quickly took up a small spoon and scooped a portion into his cup. Then he raised the wine pot and poured. As the hot wine soaked through the paste, a rich and irresistible aroma of mutton filled the air.